Hello, and welcome to the Anderson System. We have 17 authors and counting. Thank you very much for visiting our channel, and please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you once again. Now let's get started. Hello there, and welcome again to the Anderson System. This is Adam, the host of the Anderson System. And so today I want to talk about, should a DID system create a TOPA? Again, should a DID system create a TOPA? Now, some of you may not be familiar with TOPA or tulpamancy, as they call it. And so tulpamancy basically is a methodology of creating a TOPA. And so basically what a TOPA is a TOPA is known as a thought form. Now, if you ever understand magic or occult magic, a thought form is basically an occult magic technique of creating a sentient consciousness, if you will, inside your brain. In other words, you kind of like, if your brain was a computer, you basically partition your brain like a computer. And basically, part of your brain's consciousness is allocated towards another creation. And that creation will be called a thought form, or in the form of tulpamancy, it would be called a TOPA. And now, original tulpamancy was basically from Tibetan Buddhism. It was a mystical practice. But the mystical practice of tulpamancy from Tibetan Buddhism is completely different than what we know as tulpamancy today in the Tulpa community. Because in Tibetan Buddhism, a tulpa was basically a manifestation, if you will, of your thoughts, or a manifestation of your fears. And so in order for a person to get over their fears in Tibetan Buddhism, what they would do is they will create a tulpa. And as they create that tulpa will manifest themselves, sometimes even physically, like a ghost or like a polka dice or like an entity. And basically that manifestation will be a way to almost like transmute or transfer their fears so they can overcome their fears, so that once they overcome that fear part of themselves, they can ascend to higher levels of consciousness. And so that was the understanding of Tibetan mystical practice of a TOPA. But today's TOPA community is a little bit different than that. It's kind of, they use the term TOPA, yes. But a TOPA that they're talking about is basically what people in the occult will call a thought form. Now, thought forms can come in different levels of manifestation, because the very basic understanding of a thought form would not necessarily be conscious, but it would almost be like an NPC. Because if you create a thought form that's more like an NPC, that's a non-playable character, basically you can tell the thought form what you want it to do. You can tell the thought form, okay, I want you to go out into the universe and create for me money, or I want you to do X, Y, and Z for me. And that thought form will listen to you like a servant, and it will do your bidding for you. And so that's what they use in occult magic or occult understanding. And you may ask, oh, how do you know this stuff? Well, because actually, the little background about me is that way back in the day, I was like extremely Christian, like very, very Christian, to a point where I went to Bible school to become a pastor. And so I have a lot of Christian theological background on me as well. And so that did help me for a while. But then I left Christianity, got involved in the New Age. And so I studied New Age for years and years and years. And the New Age to me got a little bit of kind of shallow. And so at that point, I started to become a hardcore occultist. And I studied the occult, I studied Satanism, I studied Luciferianism, I studied all these things really, really hardcore. And I still study them too as well. And so I learned magic, whether it's black or if it's white, I learned both forms. And also I know Christian theology, of course, very well because of my former idea of a pastor. And of course, right now, because of my past and stuff, I have DID. And so, and that's just, that's just another part of my life. And also understand channeling too as well, because of course I was involved in the psychic community. And I did psychic readings, I did channeling as well. And so when I found I had DID, to me it was confusing as hell, because I couldn't understand what was the difference between me channeling a spirit and me talking to my altar. I couldn't understand the difference, and I'm still trying to figure out the difference. And I can tell a little bit of a difference versus a spirit that's on the outside of me versus a channeling versus an altar that lives inside of me, like a like a consciousness that lives inside of me. And so it took me a while to understand a little bit difference, where I can kind of partition a little bit of the energy. But one good thing about being having DID and being a multiple, that trance channeling is so easy for me to do. I can easily tap in and channel any energy I want because I have alters. And my mind is always constantly in that mode of dissociating that I can easily enter into a trance and easily flow with any energy, which is kind of scary in a way. But at the same time, when you're multiple and your brain has split as a child, I'm telling you, to do the occult thing is easy peasy. It's so freaking easy. And so, okay, now getting back into tulpamancy. Okay, so when you create a tulpa, basically you're creating a separate consciousness outside of your own consciousness. And you can talk to that consciousness and it'll talk back to you. And so just like a tulpa is kind of like an altar, but a little bit different. Now let me explain to you the difference. When you have DID, like me, I have DID, and those are all my friends who have systems have DID, you get DID because your life got fucked up. You got DID because you went through trauma. You went through the shit. You went through the ringer. And so tulpamancy is nothing like having DID. And when you have altars, an altar can front and take over the body. The altar can basically possess the body and take over the body. Now, when it comes to possession, yes, possession does happen in tulpamancy, but it's almost like the possession is almost like, how could I word it? It's voluntary. It's definitely voluntary. Like if you had a tulpa, you guys kind of have to like hash out with your tulpa and talk to your tulpa and volunteer that tulpa to take over your body. Where altar doesn't give a shit. An altar will take over your body. Altar's like, hey, I don't give a shit. I'm on front. And so that's a big difference between altar and a tulpa. Altar will definitely take over your body and not care. And so that's one big difference. Another difference is that an altar took on your pain for you. That's why you have an altar. An altar took on all the shit you dealt with. Like when it came to us in the event, I'm not gonna tell you the event that happened that gave us our DID, but when that event happened, my altar remembers it more than I do because they took on. Because I guess I was switched out and I didn't really feel the pain when what they felt. And that's why they are trauma holders, because they hold that trauma. And so a tulpa cannot be a trauma holder. Now you can give some trauma to your tulpa. Don't get me wrong. You can transfer the energy to your tulpa, but it won't be the same. It's kind of like secondhand knowledge. Like if you had a tulpa and you say, oh, tulpa, I got some really fucked up shit in my past. And you talk to your tulpa in your mind, your tulpa may say, okay, can you please share that with me or something like that? I'm just making an example. Your tulpa could take on part of that pain as like almost like as having empathy, but it's secondhand knowledge. It's not firsthand knowledge. Where when you have DID and you get fucked up, it's firsthand knowledge because that tulpa, that altar took on that pain physically. It took on that pain mentally and spiritually. It was there. It's not secondhand knowledge. And so should a DID system create a tulpa or a thought form? I'll say it's up to you. It can be good for your system or may not be. It all depends, because sometimes some altars can be offended by it because they feel like, oh, this new person is coming into the headspace and they don't know what trauma is. And so it's almost like having a family and you're adopting a child. That's what it's like. If you want to make a tulpa, it's like having a family and adopting a child. Now, that adopted child may not be always accepted by the other siblings within the family because they're not part of the family. They're not organic. And so there can be some resentment there because that child didn't know mom and dad the way the adopted child did. And so there can be hesitation there. And because maybe that tulpa never experienced any kind of trauma and shit like that, the altars could very well lash out at the altar. And that'll really make you fucked up then, because it'll be hard. And so if you're a DID system and you want to make a tulpa, there's nothing wrong with it. I've heard stories of many people who have DID that created tulpas, and it has been amazing for them because they're able to help, almost like help them manage the system better, because they're able to give that tulpa one task of doing something, and that task is able to fulfill a gap that they have within their system. And so I say yes, it's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. But again, it's like having a family and you're adopting a child. Let me get some water for a second. And so yeah, so it can be very, very difficult. Now, in saying that, should you attempt to do this, and how does it work? Well, with the tulpa, how it works is basically there's something called almost like pushing your tulpa, in creating your tulpa. In other words, you got to push your mind to create that tulpa. You got to push your mind to form that thought form of your tulpa. And so basically, if you want to create a tulpa, this is how you do it. You get a pen and pencil, or you can use your computer, whatever you want to do. You write down characteristics that you want your tulpa to have. Like if you want your tulpa to be a mean ass, you put, I want my tulpa to be a mean ass. Hopefully not. Or you can say, I want my tulpa to be kind, nice, or whatever. And you can make your tulpa effective or effective or however you want it. You can say, I want my tulpa to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you kind of can have your tulpa be a pattern after Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so you actually would concentrate, if you will, on those characteristics. And this is the part of magic. Because if you know anything about magic, magic is made or created by intention. Now, there's some people in the tulpa community who don't believe in magic, who just believe that this is just a psychological trick you can do. And yes, you can still make a tulpa believing it's just a psychological trick. But I tend to believe in magic, and I know that magic is produced by intention. And so basically, you can intend your tulpa to have these type of characteristics. And when you do so, your tulpa can actually take on those characteristics. You say, I want the tulpa to be male, female, binary, however you want to do it. I want my tulpa to have this or that. And so basically, it's like build a person. You ever go to Build-A-Bear, how you can like build your bear and how you want it to be? Having a tulpa is the same thing like that way. It's like Build-A-Bear. And so you concentrate on those things that you want your tulpa to have. And you do something called forcing. And that's what they call it in the tulpa community, forcing. In other words, you force your tulpa to form in your mind. And you can do that through meditation, which people do. You can even do that through role playing, if you will. They have your tulpa speak to you. And so there's different how to create tulpa guides online. And so I don't have any favorite ones that I suggest. I looked at most of them. Most of them kind of basically say the same thing on how to create a tulpa. And so it roughly can take like, some people say it takes a year for them to make a tulpa. Some people have made tulpas within 3 months. And I would say if you're a multiple, or if you have DID, or if you're just a multiple and have multiplicity, you can probably make a tulpa within like 15 minutes or less. I won't even say even 10 minutes. Because if your brain's already divided like a freaking computer, because my brain is because of DID, I can make a tulpa fast, like within like 5 minutes, because your brain's already been partitioned. But if you're a singlet and your brain has not been partitioned, it may take you roughly a couple of months to make a tulpa and have it become sentient. And that's what we'll also say when you have a tulpa, they say that that is a serious commitment, because having a tulpa it's a living, breathing being. And so they say if you actually will abandon your tulpa or try to to kill it or whatever, this says it's a bad thing. They say you don't become a murderer by abandoning your tulpa. And so I have a kind of issue with that, because I don't think you can murder a thought form. That's just my opinion. Studying magic, I don't think you can murder a thought form. But there's some people in the tulpa community that says that if you abandon your tulpa, you're killing it. And I think that's just weird shit, honestly. But I would say this: treat your tulpa with respect, because yes, they become sentient. They can have consciousness like me and you have consciousness. And so absolutely respect them. Don't treat them horrible, because I heard horrible stories that people will create tulpas to torture them. Don't do that shit. That shit's sick. They actually are living beings, and they can talk to you just like your altar talks to you, if you have altars. And so anyway, that's my take on tulpas. And so my next video, I'll be talking about DID and channeling, and the whole spiritual aspect of DID and channeling and how that works. Because some people in the DID community wonder, how can you make money? Well, if your brain's already partitioned like a freaking computer, you probably are really good at channeling. You're probably really good at connecting energies. You can probably make money doing psychic readings, you know? And so that's another way to make money, because having a job being multiple was hard for me. And so I had to find another way to do that. And so I'm able to do that because I'm able to easily disassociate and trans-channel, and it just comes easy and natural to me. And so anyway, this is Adam, signing off from the Innocent System. Good night.